like to start by getting in the center of the page, and so the way I do that is by measuring. And I have a ruler with inches, and I measure, and it's 8.5, and half of 8.5 is 4 1/4. So I go to 4 1/4, and I make a little, with my pencil, I make a little pie shape. And so I'll turn my ruler around and measure over here 4 1/4. Now I'll measure the whole length of the page, and it's 11 inches. So half of 11 is 5 1/2. So I line up the ruler so that I'm going down the center of the page, and I make a very gentle pencil mark for my axis that goes along the length of the page, and at 5 1/2 I make a little mark like that, and that will be the center of the page, and this line will be parallel to the edges of the page as well. So then it's pretty simple. I take my compass and I make sure that it's set to an appropriate length. For this I'm going to do, I guess, 1.25 inches approximately. And so when I use my compass, I have to look really close to make sure that I'm getting it right where I want it. So I put the point of the compass at the very center of the page and look close. So wherever my hand is making a shadow, I have to look close to not make a shadow so I can see where the center of the page is when I put the point there. Then I press the page. Now I'm only going to use one hand most of the time, so I touch the compass until I can hold the top. And then the point is in there, and I hold the page down so it doesn't move. And I slowly rotate around the center point to draw my perfect circle. I make it look easy, and the important thing is to use one hand at a time, because if you accidentally push or pull these closer or smaller, then you'll change the size of the circle. But if you keep the size the same, then everything will work out perfect. So I carefully look and line up that point right there so that the compass point is there, and I make sure that it goes exactly through the center of the circle with a little test mark. That one actually seems like you can make a micro adjustment and make it go. And when it goes over the hole, it makes a little click because you can feel that dent in the page. So I hold it with one finger or one hand at a time, and I rotate around and I draw my second circle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the center of the page. I'm going to make a little circle there to remind me and you that that's the center of the page. We can erase all the pencil marks later. So now there's these two new points that are made by drawing these two circles, and where they intersect, it's called the vesica piscis. And right there at either of those corners you can put the point of your compass and test to make sure it goes through the two other centers of those circles, and you'll feel it click. And you can make micro adjustments if you need to. And then you draw your third circle. And I come over to the second circle here and choose this as my third point. That's the triquetra, and I'm still staying on this first circle. Go to the third point on there and test that circle and see it looks good there and it looks good here. So I go ahead and draw it. If ever you need to make sure, if ever you lose your point, you just have to go back to your center. You can make sure that you have the right sized circle still by going back to the center and testing it and seeing that you still have the same setting. So I come over to any of these last 2 points on the first circle here. And then this one. And then it lines up perfectly at the last point that's right there on that axis line. And so that's good when it lines up perfect. We like that. So we are now completing the seed of life, which has 7 perfect circles, the one in the center with the 6 around it. And within this there are 6 new points that are defined, which is these ones here, which I'll mark with the pencil so that we can keep track of what's what, because as we keep going it gets kind of complicated. The most important thing is you always remember where your center is. So we're going to do these 6 points next. There will be new points that are created as we draw these 6 circles, so we'll just have to remember which ones we're doing with those marks. And we're going to do 6 more circles now. So we'll start. And I always am careful to look and make sure that I'm not making a shadow. Get the point as exact as I can and feel for that click over those other centers of circles. And I like to just go around the circle. You could go in different orders, but if you just make sure to use those marks that we just made, then you won't get lost or confused as new marks are being made by our new circles. Oops, I lost my point. Test and test. Okay. So making sure that I can see those little pencil marks reminding me which ones are the ones to do. And then I test my circle before I go all the way in case I need to make some micro adjustments. And my hand makes its own shadow, so I need to be careful not to make a shadow over my hand while I'm drawing. So now we've drawn the next 6 circles from those points that we've marked, and it's made the egg of life. And so that's 13 circles that are perfectly interlacing, and in the original circle is all of the flowers and petals that we will develop throughout our design. And so our next 6 points I will mark here. They will be at these points that we've just made right here, and here, 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 and there. And do the next 6 circles. You can make sure at any point right now, like for example, that your circle is still at the same setting, so I make sure to find the exact center mostly by feeling, and I get it exactly in the center. And then I test my circle, and it feels like it got a little bit bigger, probably just from pushing and pulling. So I make a micro adjustment. I just pushed it in a little tiny bit to keep it from getting too big. Okay, so now I go for that very exact point in there, and I test, and it feels good. So I go ahead and draw the next circle. That would be the 14th. It does take concentration and breathing. Sometimes the page can turn, so I like to hold it down. And that one didn't line up perfect, so I'm going to make a micro adjustment. And come to the next point. And here we have all of the circles that we're going to have of the flower of life. At this point we would draw a circle around the outside of the whole shape. And there's a little more designs to fill in within the size that we have now. So the new points that we have, there's now 2 per each side. There's these 2 here. And there will be new points coming, but sometimes people can get confused and get lost if they make a new point and forget which points they're working on. So there's 12 points around the design now. And at this point, we're only going to make partial circles. So in this one I have 2 circles that I drew where I fixed and made a micro adjustment, so I need to see which one of those arcs is better, and it's the outer one. So I'll test it because I see that there's 2 of them and I got it in the right place. But you have to look really close to make sure you get as accurate of a center for each circle as you can. Fill in the ones that we just created at the outer points all the way around, so there's the 6 at the very corners of the shape. And since we're only drawing partial circles, it's easier to find them now. Okay, so I got my pencil, my compass with my pencil, and I go ahead and get it to the center and set it to the same size as all those circles that I just drew, which is approximately 1.25 inches. So I draw a little bit and make sure that it's good, and then I'm going to come to all of those points around the edge that I just drew. I'm going to make little arc segments. You won't be able to see them very good unless you look very close. I'm going to go to all of those places. I'm going to draw to where they intersect each other. And I'm doing this to erase them later. And if you were to keep going and draw the fruit of life, you would make complete circles here. But since we're just doing the flower of life, we're going to stop at this distance from the center. And so I'm drawing all of these parts of the circles from these points at the outer edge with a pencil mark that I will erase sooner or later. And there's 2 points that I have to mark for each of those outer points. And it makes a bunch of little X's that I can see if I look really close. So there's all of my little X's all the way around. There's 3 per side. And then I get my pen, my compass with my pen. I have to make sure it's at the same right size. So I go back to the center circle, I set it, and I make sure the juice is flowing. Okay, it's good. And then I go and carefully set the point of the compass to those X's and make those petals at the edge of the mandala. And because I did a pretty good job, they're all lining up really good, but you can test and make sure that it's going to line up. the center of the circle and extend the compass point, and carefully tests that it goes to the center of the outside and touches the perimeter of the circle. So we have to set the compass setting a little bit bigger or smaller to make it touch all of those circles. And once we get it, we can draw the zona pellicuda. Oh, and that's where I made the mistake. It's the hard part. For this bigger circle, you have to be careful.